What's up, everybody? Andre Khatchaturian here for the second episode of the Armenian Sports News Podcast. We're glad to have you with us. Joining me today, as always, is my co-host, Jason Takhtadjian, joining us from Sioux Falls or Sioux City, Iowa. I always forget.
Sioux City, Iowa. Yep, right in the middle of the country.
Well, this might be your last episode. No, you'll have one more episode from Sioux City, Iowa, before you take your talents to Fresno, California. And Jason, you were telling me off camera earlier, you have some issues with your skin today. What's going on with you?
I don't know what happened. I didn't even shave this
You've been
morning,
bleeding
but
all day.
I started bleeding and I wasn't able to stop it for another 30 minutes. I tried everything in the book, tried some topical cream. I tried to get, a bottle of vodka from the freezer and put it on my skins because I didn't have a freezing pack. Just anything and everything. I got, some tissues that I tried to put, a cube on, a cube of tissue and try to stop it. I think we're okay now, so we can proceed.
I think I will. If anything bad happens, I'll make sure to call 911. So you'll have to get some medical attention. You're all set. I'm here for you, Jason. But enough of that.
Thanks.
Even though it is very important, I do care about you very much. I do not want you to be in the hospital. But we have a lot of things to talk about. What happened this week in the world of Armenian sports. Leading off today, Katlyn Chookagian, UFC 299, not the performance she wanted, a unanimous decision loss to Maycee Barber. Chookagian hadn't fought in a very long time. She talked about that a little bit at Media Day, and here's what she had to say.
Bothering you?
Actually, so for the past year, I've been going through fertility treatments, and it's been a long year. That's kind of why I thought I was going to be taking off from fighting a little bit longer. But for the last year, I went through like 3 full rounds of IVF, and I had 2 miscarriages. And it's been a tough year. But I wanted to take a break from that, not just mentally, but physically. And going through fertility is so hard. It's so hard that I'm taking a fight to take a mental and physical break from fertility treatments. I'm taking a fight because this is way, way easier than dealing with that.
So obviously very emotional there, Jason, in that press conference before the fight. And not the results she wanted, but I guess for her, when you really think about it, it's a win personally.
I think so. I mean, the one comment that stood out to me the most was that in order for her to take a break from all those treatments and the 2 miscarriages that she had, she took a fight. So it's not always you hear somebody saying that they want to take a break from something and instead they're going to go and do some intense training and combat. And that's exactly what Katlyn did. And I agree with you. I think that, although the result didn't go the way that she would have wanted, the fact that she stepped back into the octagon, someone who has, really made a name for herself in the UFC and is well respected by the entire community. It's great. It was really great to see her step back in the ring, and she looked pretty good, honestly.
She suffers another loss. She was the number 4 ranked women's flyweight contender. So she's had her day in the sun. She's had an amazing career, and she's definitely going to continue fighting. But just after that loss, getting back into the championship picture after back-to-back losses and that inactivity is going to be very difficult for her. And, especially now, it does seem like she does want to start a family and settle down. And so I don't know if we'll see her in that championship picture for a while. But, yeah, you're right. She did perform well despite losing. But when it comes to taking that next step, I think, unfortunately, maybe the best days are behind Katlyn Chookagian. Katlyn Chookagian Cerminara. She also did talk about that on at Media Day of how she had legally changed her last name from Chookagian to Cerminara after getting married about 5 years ago. But in the UFC, she kept her last name because she didn't want to disappoint her Armenian fans, which I thought was a cool remark. And speaking of Armenian, things. We are the Armenian Sports News. So she met another Armenian fighter who was there at UFC 299, Arman Tsarukyan. He attended as one of the guests, as promoting his own fight coming up at UFC 300, and he was photographed with Cerminara Chookagian before the fight.
That's right. And it was really cool. I wish I was a fly on the wall to see kind of what they exchanged, what the conversation was like. But that's really neat that Arman and Katlyn did meet up just to see Armenian fighters meeting up. And I'm sure hopefully one day we can see all the UFC Armenian fighters come together for a photo.
Yeah, we talked about that with our special guest for this week's podcast, was Isaac Dulgarian. He will be fighting this week. We are recording right now on Tuesday, March 11th. Dulgarian will be fighting this Saturday. So stay tuned for that interview later on in the show. But before we get to that, let's talk a little bit more about Tsarukyan, who obviously he'll be fighting UFC 300 next month in Las Vegas. Huge fight against Charles Oliveira. The one thing I've noticed about Tsarukyan over the years, when he first entered the UFC, the guy barely spoke any English, kind of shy, kind of reserved. And now you're seeing him headlining these UFC 300 press conferences, which took place right before UFC 299 on Thursday. And he had so much charisma, energy, trash talking, saying inappropriate things. Just he is a different man, or maybe he's the same man, but his personality has come out more now that maybe his English is stronger. And because of that, we're seeing more of his personality. But he's definitely become a UFC fan favorite over the last few years. And not just because of his performances in the octagon, but also because of his personality.
Yeah, I think he's very outspoken, and I think his improvement in English does help that, so he can interact with a larger fan base. I mean, during that press conference to promote UFC 300, Tsarukyan was asked about the fight with Oliveira, and he was very, very bullish about himself. He said, I want to knock him out in the first round. I'm going to prove that I'm the best in the world. And he's maintained that sentiment ever since he knocked out Beneil Dariush, because he said that about Islam Makhachev. And now he's going to say that about Oliveira, which if he does get a knockout, that's going to send shockwaves throughout the UFC, because, yeah, the Islam Makhachev versus Tsarukyan rematch would definitely be on the cards.
Yeah, and that confidence he exuded going into this fight, that's the type of confidence you want from a potential UFC champion. He is not afraid to make some enemies. He's not afraid. He cares about his own success, which is, that's the type of attitude we've seen from previous champions in other divisions. And it's okay to talk a little bit of trash. It's part of the UFC fight game. He's kind of coming into his own, and it's good to see. And also, special thanks to our correspondent, Avanesyan, who was there in Miami this past weekend, covering all the sights and sounds of UFC 299, from media day to weigh-ins to the fight. He did a great job. Check out a lot of his work on our Instagram page and YouTube page. Jason, you'll be there doing the same thing in Las Vegas next month. So we're excited to see your coverage of Tsarukyan's fight. It's going to be great to see what happens there. We'll be talking about that fight in Las Vegas next month, all throughout this month, leading into next month. But let's shift gears now to the world of tennis. Right now, the BNP Paribas Open in Indian Wells, California is going on, and it was not a great showing for both of the Armenian competitors. Garhan Khachanov in the men's division singles, and Elina Avanesyan in the women's side. It was not the best showing there.
Right. I mean, 2 first-round knockouts to opponents who are lower ranked than them. I mean, Khachanov loses to a number 65 rank. Avanesyan loses to a number 85 rank. But they were all in the first round, and this is Indian Wells. This is California. Obviously, there's an Armenian population there that's going to be going out and cheering on. I know some people personally that went to these matches expecting, multiple matches from these guys, hopefully seeing Khachanov go into the third, the fourth round, the quarterfinal, semifinal, something like that. But it's a bit disappointing. They consider it the sixth Grand Slam, even though that's not necessarily the case. But it just goes to show it's a very highly rated event that a lot of people have their eyes on. But again, the upsets keep on happening in that tournament, don't they, Andre?
Novak Djokovic also lost. So if there's any solace in any of these competitors losing, it's like, hey, well, Novak lost, the greatest tennis player right now. So I guess it's okay. Right. But definitely tough for Khachanov. That's his second straight early exit after winning in Qatar. So I don't know. Maybe there's a little bit of a hangover there. Again, it's really tough to follow up. He had to, participate in. Whoa, my lights just went off.
What happened? Where did the lights go?
Well, let's take a break while I fix my lights. All right, we're back with some better lighting.
He said, "Let there be light."
Yeah. We're back with some better lighting. Back tough losses for Khachanov. Maybe there's a little bit of a hangover. He did win in Qatar, but then had to participate the following week in Dubai and then fly across the world to Los Angeles. So I don't know. It's tough, but it's okay. I think getting that victory in Qatar was still a big deal for him, and prepping for the big ones that are going to be coming in this summer in France, Wimbledon, and US Open.
Right. That's the glass half full way of looking at it. It's still the early first stage of the season. So maybe it's just a way of managing, the body and managing the game and moving forward and prioritizing other events. So I'll let that be up for interpretation for their next competitions.
And moving along to the world of gymnastics, we talked about last time on our first episode about Artur Davtyan, who's been dominating the world of gymnastics. He and the Armenian national gymnastics team sitting this past weekend's World Cup event in Baku, Azerbaijan out due to obvious safety concerns. We've seen that with other Armenian athletes. So just a follow-up, they did not participate. But we will likely see them participate in future events. I just think the biggest loser in this whole situation, Jason, is Vahagan Davtyan, who's in the rings discipline, and he's had some good performances in the World Cup. I believe he won a silver in Cairo, but he needs these events to be able to qualify for the Olympics.
Yeah, he medaled in those first two World Cup series events, and it's unfortunate because as someone who is like us and is following Armenian athletes, especially with the Olympics coming up, you want to see as many Armenian athletes competing as possible. But aside from that, you want to make sure that the playing field is even and it's a fair game for everybody. And that's not the case here because you pointed it out a bit earlier that this is the third year in a row that the FIG World Cup gymnastic tournament is in Baku. And it's just basically ignoring what's going on in the world and how those world events and political events are now impacting athletes like Davtyan who want to compete in the Olympics and possibly get a first Olympic medal. It's a huge honor. It's the greatest competition, arguably, in sports. So why not have a fair chance at allowing all athletes to compete? Why not have neutral competition zones?
Absolutely. And it's just a shame that it's 2024 and this is happening because, we've seen other world issues get much more attention around the sports world. But this is nobody's talking about it. And I think it's a shame. But hopefully for Vahagan that he gets that Olympic nod and gets to qualify. And the last topic before we head to Isaac Dulgarian, you've been following this closer than I have, Jason, is speaking of the Olympics, the Olympic boxing qualification tournament happened this week in Italy, and not a great week for Armenian boxers.
No, not a great week at all. I think when it was all said and done, there were 3 boxers or 4 boxers that were in the third round, and if they were to win their bouts, they were to make it to the quota bout, which would have allowed them to compete for a spot in the Olympics, but that was not the case. All of the Armenian athletes that made it to the third round ended up losing. And earlier today, I ended up reading a Facebook post from the president of the Armenian Boxing Federation, and it looks like he's trying to appeal some of those decisions by the referees. He thinks that the Armenian boxers were wrongfully done. I'm not exactly sure how far that appeal will go, but the fact remains currently at the time of recording that the Armenian boxers in that first round did not get through. I am not entirely sure how many boxers initially started. I think it's at least or nearly 10 boxers that started. None of the Armenians ended up going to the quota bouts. So,
well,
it's a bit unfortunate.
I will say this about that appeal. There's a long history of some sketchy things going on around the Olympic boxing, international boxing. So we don't have to dive into that, but there's a lot of weird stuff that's happened over the years. A lot of these fights in international boxing, the Olympic style boxing, which is basically it's amateur boxing.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of these fights don't end in knockouts, and they're all usually left to the judges. And you can do your own research to find some of the corruption that's happened over the years in that sport. Moving along, back to the UFC, to Isaac Dulgarian, who will be fighting this Saturday in Las Vegas, in the UFC Apex there in Vegas against Christian Rodriguez. It's his second career UFC fight. This guy is the hottest Armenian prospect, maybe the hottest prospect period in the UFC right now. He is 6-0 in his career, 1-0 in the UFC, 6 straight first-round finishes. He's absolutely devastating to watch because his fights, if you miss it, it can be over very quickly. He just takes care of business very quickly. I actually found Dulgarian. He was fighting out of in Kansas City on the FAC, the Fighting Alliance Championship. It's a small promotion in the Midwest. And I noticed, Dulgarian, Armenian guy. And I saw some of his YouTube finishes. I'm like, oh my God, this guy might actually be the real deal. And I contacted him back then. This was 2021. And since then, he won the FAC belt, was discovered by Dana White, signed to the UFC, won his first match, and now he's ready to for his second match. And we spoke to him, Jason and I did, and what an interesting guy, what a humble guy, and we can't wait for you to get to know Isaac. What's up, everybody? Andre Khatchaturian of Armenian Sports News, and joined with Jason Takhtadjian. And today our guest is the Midwest Chopper, UFC featherweight Isaac Dulgarian, who will be fighting this Saturday at UFC Las Vegas in the Apex against Christian Rodriguez. Isaac Dulgarian is 6-0, and all 6 of his finishes in the first round. One of the fastest up-and-comers in the UFC. Isaac, how are you today?
Man, I'm doing great. Just enjoying the weather. My weight's all good, so I'm just hanging out, basically. Just a rest day. Nothing crazy.
It's been a while since you last fought. What preparations have you taken as you get prepared for this one?
Man, I've been doing everything. I feel like this is the best shape I've ever been in for a fight camp. Lots of cardio, lots of jump rope. Every weekend I've been up in the mountains running at 10,000 feet plus. So I've done everything I could possibly do for this fight camp to be ready.
Is there anything new that you're doing in this fight camp compared to your last fight camp for your first UFC fight, or are you just kind of honing in on your skills right now?
Nothing really different, really just locked in on the cardio portion because I know my opponent, he's good at dragging people into deep water, so we got to make sure I'm ready to go there. That's really the only difference. Everything else is just sharpening the tools and making sure I'm ready to go.
So where are you right now? You're in Colorado?
Yeah, I'm out at Denver. I'm out at Factory X. There's my RV behind me.
So you're still living in the RV?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That's awesome. And so last time we spoke, you had maybe just started living in the RV. And how has that kind of helped you, I guess, in your development as a fighter? Being mobile and having the access to being in Colorado, the high altitude, and how does that kind of help you?
It's been great, man, because I'm literally parked right outside Factory X right now. So I just wake up, brush my teeth, and go train, I can train at night when nobody's here. I can get extra work in and just focus on my skills. So it's really good to be in here. It's a little bit of a different lifestyle. Obviously, I got to fix stuff on my own and change propane and all that. But It's nothing crazy, man. It's just really good for me. I don't need a lot. I'm only really here when I sleep, so that's about the only time I'm in the RV.
Championship
Got you.
mindset. I love that.
Love it. Now, Isaac, we kind of talked about it already. We kind of mentioned it. Your KO win against Francis Marshall. That was your first UFC fight. Now you got Christian Rodriguez coming up. How do you, approach that fight? What's the difference in approach going into a fight with Christian Rodriguez and what you're expecting out of that fight come to Sunday?
Well, the biggest difference to me is Christian is good all around. He doesn't have very many holes in his game. He's very skilled in every position this fight goes, whereas like Francis, he's more of like a grappler with decent boxing. And so the preparation isn't much different. It's just paying attention to kind of what his tendencies are. I think this fight could kind of go the same way. I'm not overlooking Christian at all. He's tough. He's a tough kid. He's not gonna let me beat him up. He's not gonna lay there for me to beat him up. He's gonna try to get up. So, and he's gonna try to catch me with knees on my entry and use bone on bone contact. So, a little more skillful opponent, but he's gonna be smaller, not as strong, and closer to my size. So I think it's a good matchup. He's beat a couple big hype trains, and so I'm looking to take all that hype away from him.
So
Does that mean that you're? Oh, you go.
ahead,
Go.
Jason.
Yeah, I was going to ask just to follow up on that. Does that mean that you've been working on a specific part of your fight game that maybe you haven't been able to showcase in fights prior since none have gone past the first round? Is there something different that you're working on then when you go against Christian?
Nothing really different, brother. Really, the game is MMA. You have to be able to blend the arts together, effortlessly, seamlessly, and that's really the only thing that I've been working on. I want to be good everywhere. I want to be able to blend my striking to my grappling to jiu-jitsu, and vice versa. So that's the biggest thing for me, is just being a smooth operator in this fight, well-oiled machine, and show up the A+ fighter that I am.
Well, I was going to ask you, Isaac, about this hype train that you're talking about, like how Christian Rodriguez has, stopped some hype trains. How much hype do you feel like you've built up with your 6 straight victories in the first round? And does that put a little more pressure on you, that like the expectation of an Isaac Dulgarian fight now is first round, it has to be over with Isaac raising his arm in the end? Is that kind of get in your head at this point with all this success?
It doesn't really get in my head, man. I think pressure is something that you put on yourself, and I'm a champion in life and in fighting, and I don't really put that on my shoulders, man. The fight's gonna turn out how it's going to, regardless of what I think, what I feel. So, at the end of the day, we're getting in a fist fight, and the best guy's gonna get their hand raised. There's nothing crazy's going on there, man. I would love to get another first round finish. I definitely think I can in this fight. I think that, I think it's my toughest fight today against a opponent that's good that's good everywhere. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. And for you, with these first round finishes, has it been difficult to try to maybe identify your own weaknesses because these fights end so quickly?
No, not really, man, because we see it in training. We have simulated sparring every Friday here at Factory X. So basically you do your walkout, you walk into the cage, and you fight basically every Friday. So it's nothing new. It's another day at the office, and we see all my tendencies and stuff in practice. So it's something that we've been correcting. We've been correcting the small mistakes, and I think you're going to see a whole new fighter from my last fight.
Talking about your last fight real quick, that was UFC Vegas 78, and 4 fights ended up getting performance bonuses. Yours didn't, and me and Andre are of the impression that you should have been one of those fighters that got that $50K bonus. I mean, is that part of motivation that's you're leading into this fight?
Definitely. I have my daughter being born here in a few weeks, and I need that 50 G's bad. So I'm looking to change my life, looking to change my family's life, and I think I can do it. I have the skill to do it. I have the mindset to do it. and I have the opportunity to do it. I just got moved to the main card, the UFC Vegas 88, and that's a big deal, especially for your second fight in the UFC. So I think the UFC recognizes my skill set, and they want to give me the opportunity. So it's just up to me to go out and perform.
That's awesome.
And I want to say, yeah, go for it.
Go ahead, Jason, go ahead.
Okay, so I wanted to say again, just congratulations on announcing that you're going to be a dad. I think you did mention you made that post public just a couple days after you scored your first UFC win. And fast forward 7 months, we're here today. You got the fight in a week. I mean, just what has life been like for you, balancing the fact that you're about to become a dad, and also you got another fight coming up on your plate? Just how are you balancing that?
It's been a lot of change, but it hasn't really affected me like I thought it would in the beginning. My fight camp has went super smooth, one of the smoothest ones I've had, and I'm just super blessed that my lady, Alexa, she's been a trooper throughout the whole thing. She's super pregnant and has done nothing but help me. So really, really grateful for that. Really grateful for her to be willing to take that place and know that even though she's pregnant and I can't be there all the time right now, that at the end of the day, I'm doing this for us, and it'll pay off in the end.
Well, there's no bigger motivator than family, so that's really awesome that you have that going for you right now. So Isaac, you've had some hardship like in your career and stuff. I remember there was an issue that you had with the Nelk brothers when you were first starting out in the UFC. How have moments like that kind of given you experience and help you grow?
Man, that type of stuff kind of turned me into a man. The sport it's a cutthroat business. It's a cutthroat business, and some of these guys, they're just out here for themselves. They give these fighters that have nothing opportunities, and then take it away from them. And that shows their character. I didn't want to work with them. I'm full of character. Those guys don't have it, and so it is what it is. At the end of the day, I wanted that check. I wanted the spotlight. I feel like I've earned it. You're not deserved anything in life, but I feel like I earned it, and it was just ripped right out of my mouth. So I still am kind of bitter about it, but it is what it is at the end of the day. And, hard times make hard people.
Isaac, I want to talk to you just talking about, these hard times building, tougher people. But, with the hard times also comes good times and celebrations. And I want to kind of shift focus to, the support that you received after your first fight. Just kind of tell us about what that was like, but also tell us about the support you got from the Armenian community as a result, too.
Oh, man, after my fight, it was crazy. As fighters, we get a ton of messages all over social media, and I try my best to respond to all of them. Sometimes it takes a week or so, but my Armenian fans have done nothing but show love and support, and I feel like they will regardless of win or losses. I feel like they really ride for me, and I'm just super excited for this one because they finally brought back our flag, so I get to have my flag and everything. So that's good, and really just the support I got, man. It's something that I feel like I didn't get for a long time, and that's another thing where it's like, hey, man, you have to earn it, and I feel like I did earn it, and so it's great to have that, and it just makes me feel loved and cared about. It makes me want to continue fighting for my family, for my people, for Kansas City, for Armenia, for everybody that supports me.
That's fantastic that you get to bring out the flag this time. That's really cool. Love to hear that. And so, you're a featherweight contender, and obviously UFC 298, we have a new featherweight champion now in Ilya Topuria. Did you watch that fight? What did you think of it?
Yeah, I watched that fight, man. I think Ilya put on an impressive performance. I didn't think he was going to put Volk out like that early, but his boxing is very, very good, and he's truly, truly powerful and scary dude. So he's a good fighter, and nothing but respect. He's another caucus fighter, just tough. I mean, you're born to fight. So
yeah, from Georgia. So hey, maybe one day we see a big fight with you and Ilya. That'll be amazing to see. And also, there's a big fight coming up, UFC 300. Arman Tsarukyan, another Armenian fighter, is going to be participating at UFC 300. What do you kind of think of his game? And you're not in the same division as him, but what are your thoughts on his fighting?
He's very good. He's very good all around. I think he has the potential to be a future champion. He's got a tough fight with Charles the Bronx, but I think he can get through this fight fairly easily. Arman carries a lot of power, and his grappling is top notch. So I think that's good. I've got to talk with him a little bit.
Cool.
Plan on going and training with him sometime. I just got to make some money first before I can make those travels. But, I see him training out in Russia and in the mountains and doing some stuff that I like to do. And nothing but love and respect there. So he's a great fighter, champion potential. And, I'm excited for that fight. I'm excited to watch him succeed.
That's fantastic. I'm glad you guys got to meet. And there's several other Armenian fighters in the UFC. It'll be really cool. Like one day you all get together for a nice photo or something. That'd be awesome.
Yeah. No, it'd be badass for sure.
Isaac, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to talk to us again. You've always been so gracious with your time and with speaking with ASN, and we've loved watching your career grow. I think the first time I interviewed you, you're 3-0. You're still in the FAC with big hopes, big dreams, and now you're much more steps away from that in the UFC, still undefeated, and still have plenty of big dreams left, I bet.
Oh, 100%, man. It's been a wild ride since then, from small town Kansas to UFC main card. It's pretty crazy to be in that position, and just it's something that when I was on FAC, I got to watch all my teammates go on to the UFC, and I was like, I'm going to be that guy. I'm going to be that guy. And now I am that guy. So it's just about putting on great performances, man, and keep climbing the ladder. And eventually I'll be a household name, no doubt.
I'd love to hear that. And best of luck to you going forward. And best of luck Saturday. We can't wait to watch the fight. Welcome back, guys. What a great conversation with Isaac. He looks so humble and nice and professional. And he's just such a friendly dude. But when he's in that octagon, opponents don't want to face him. He's very dangerous in that octagon, and that's one kind of takeaway I had. When you think of a UFC fighter, we've talked about this earlier in the show about the trash talking that goes on, and the just the boastfulness and all of that stuff. First round, we're gonna get a first round knockout, all this stuff, and you look at Isaac, and it just comes off as just confidence and humble, and you don't see a lot of that anymore, and it was really nice to see that, and I can't wait to see this guy fight.
Absolutely, me too. And also, once again, it's just awesome to hear that he's about to become a dad, but that also adds to his confidence. It also adds to just the fact that he is out to kill, and he was very adamant that he thought he deserved that $50,000 performance bonus in his first UFC fight. And I'm glad that he brought that up, that's another motivator for him going into this fight, because Christian Rodriguez, 10-1, only one loss. His last two fights, Rodriguez went to decision, so they went the distance. And like we said earlier, Dulgarian has not seen anything past the first round. He's just finishing everybody in that first round. And if that repeats, I do think that at that point he'll get another, or if not another, but he'll get his first performance bonus.
He said in this interview, and he said it in previous interviews we've had with Dulgarian, that he's out there to change his family's life. That's what he wants to do, and that there's no bigger motivator than that. You saw he's living out of an RV right now, and a lot of these UFC fighters don't live glamorous lifestyles. Not everyone is Conor McGregor. A lot of these UFC fighters are literally fighting to get known and to change their lives and their families' lives. And when that's your motivator, that's what's the scariest thing. And that's why it's exciting to see Isaac Dulgarian, see what he does, and what he does, not just in this fight, but in the future. I think he has an extremely bright UFC career, especially in that featherweight division, and very competitive division. But we'll see what happens on Saturday.
The Midwest Chopper has something to say for sure.
Absolutely. Jason, this was great. And our audience, thank you so much for taking the time to listen to us. We'll be back again in 2 weeks. Until then, peace and happiness to all.